Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guest is Peggy Pearl, the Executive Director of the St. John's Very History and Heritage Museum and one of the most knowledgeable historians in the Northeast Kingdom. Welcome to the show, Peggy.
Thanks, Scott. Good to be here.
Yeah, not your first time, but from what I'm hearing, maybe it could be your last time, at least in your role. I understand that you're thinking it might be time to hand over the reins.
Well, the process has started as far as putting it out there. It's hard, but on the other hand, I think it's better to maybe help somebody else ease into this and not be here today, gone tomorrow type of scenario.
So are you thinking about this is time to change careers,
Oh my
or is
God,
this time to rest?
no, 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 no. It's time to do what I want to do.
But you know what? I think you're like me though. I'm blessed to make a living, a meager living, but doing what I absolutely love to do, and I think you've done that too, most of your life.
I've had a good time at what I do. I can honestly say I'm not in love with being a director because you got to worry about everything, and some of the things that you really would like to do, like write more posts or stories, gets set by the wayside. Dealing with heat problems, personnel, there's too many parts of it that I'm not crazy about being a director.
Well, I understand where you're coming from. Like I got my writing career, the start in the writing career was at the Chronicle for several years, and all I needed to do was worry about writing and
Yeah.
getting the facts right. Well, as the owner of the Northland Journal for the last 25 years, I now have to worry about everything, which kind of takes, sometimes kind of takes the fun out of it.
Yeah.
Um, so tell me, let's go back a little bit over the history of the your little museum there, and actually, I don't know, you're actually an interactive. You're very interactive there, so it's not like a stagnant museum. So what's the history of it?
Well, for those that are listening for the first time, it started with the Fairbanks Museum not having the ability to store and exhibit all of the history collections, and they were here, there, and everywhere. And so, there was talk about maybe other museums could take the collection, and that meant possibly leaving St. Johnsbury, and that just didn't set right. So we camped out in Summer Street School for about 5 years while we tried to find a place to house and display all the collections.
Right. Yeah, Caledonia County, they don't have what would be the equivalent of our Old Stone House Museum up here in Orleans County, do they? So where would the collection have gone?
I think it would have been, I mean, it was kind of seeing what maybe Shelburne might have been interested in, what the Vermont historical, I mean, it was,
So you're talking about far and wide. You're
oh,
not even
yes,
talking.
yeah,
Oh, okay. Now
yeah.
I get it. I thought you were just saying low. No, no, you did the right thing.
Well, St. Johnsbury has a pretty incredible history. And it just seemed that you know, it needed to stay here.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. I'd actually say St. Johnsbury probably has the most interesting and far reach and history of any other community in the Northeast Kingdom.
Not going to argue.
So tell me, you were already working at the Fairbanks at the time, isn't that correct?
Yeah, yeah. And I was, in charge of their history collections, and uh, I would load up the museum van and go out to the schools and teach history.
Right. Um, did you enjoy that?
Oh yeah, I created the program actually.
At least up in this neck of the woods, when I went to school and when my kids went to school, I didn't think there was enough on local history and not only local history, but local history that has a far wider reach out into the world. Like you have the Fairbanks scales. You know, don't get much bigger than that.
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure how you can appreciate what you have if you don't know where it's come from. And you know, I say that over and over, but I think it's important to have roots because, then you get support.
Right. No, that's it. And I tell people you've got to, especially if you could tie history to a larger story. Like, I say, well, if a kid likes hockey, in school, if a kid likes hockey, well, teach them the fact that Charles Adams, the founder of the Boston Bruins, the man who brought the NHL to this country, was from Newport Center, born
Yeah.
and raised. And, try to find some little tidbit of information that can capture the wonders because of the young people. Because quite honestly, I know dates and places that's important, but sometimes if you teach history just with dates and locations, that eh, gets a little boring. So I like to bring life to it.
Well,
So
I think that's the key to it.
right.
Yeah.
So you've been in this current position how long?
15 years.
I would never. One of the things, and I bet you'll agree with me. When you were a young person, did you ever hear older people tell you, just wait, when you get older, time speeds up? And if you were like me, you probably like rolled your eyes and said, yeah, sure. I would have guessed you were in that position about 5 years because that's in my mind, that's how long your organization has been founded. In other words, is I'm way off.
Yeah, and it was founded, um, but it didn't find a home for 5 years, and so this November will be 10 years that we've been open.
Right. Do you get many? So who goes to your place? Are they all real history buffs, or just some people just want to know a little bit about the history?
Well, that's been a very interesting and puzzling part of this. Um, we do have occasionally a school group, and including the academy, that comes over, but they don't utilize us to the extent that they could, in my opinion. And as far as visitors go, it's kind of hit or miss. You might go a couple days without anybody, and then the next day you might have 7 or 10. And the the thing to me has been, um, most every visitor has been wowed by what we have and how much we have. And I think I think sometimes it harks back to if they think about a historical society. A lot of places are open only seasonally, and maybe 1 or 2 days out of a month, and people tend to think, well, maybe that's what this is, but it's we've been lucky. We've been very lucky to not only have a house and a barn, but we've also got a brand new exhibit area. Um, so that makes us 3 buildings, and it's uh, it's been a it's been a good ride.
Right. Now, you probably have the role that, I don't know. I know some people love it. It's not my forte, but raising money. Uh, I assume that's a big part of your job is trying to keep the revenue flow.
Well, the interesting part is, when I was when I was retired from the museum, um, they there was absolutely no money
Right.
given for this project, and we camped out um, through the generosity of Jim and Lorraine Impey in Summer Street School for the better part of 5 years, literally,
Right.
and with nothing in the coffers. And we spent a good deal of time looking at the armory on Main Street until it turned into an environmental nightmare. And
Mm.
then literally went up and down the streets trying to find something that would fit our needs. And then, it was all raised by the community and people that used to live in the community, and one grant to purchase the place. So, you know, to me, that's been the incredible part to me is um, our new building that we put up. It's debt free, and it was all donations, and I find that rewarding. I mean, and the other thing that makes this place go is the volunteers.
Right.
It's a total volunteer run place, except um, well, right now it's total. I mean, I'm a volunteer. I've never taken anything.
Oh, you're not a. Oh, I did not realize that. I thought you were a employee, paid
No,
employee.
no.
So that it truly is a passion. Do you have any names of people yet who are interested in the position? Why, maybe another person who just retired, and if she's watching, I'm sure she's rolling her eyes. Is maybe Darcy McCann. Maybe she wants to come out of retirement.
I would doubt it. I would doubt it. And so anything that we've got going now is, you know, we've we've had a couple of applications, but that's all I can say about that.
Right. Um, so, um, so you say the new building. Now, what are you housing in there, or what are you displaying?
Um, Around the perimeter are going to be exhibits that speak to the industry other than the Fairbanks scale that was here. The Caledonian record, which goes back to 1837.
Right.
We have a neat exhibit on the French Catholics,
Oh,
with,
yeah.
the church burned, the girls' school burned, and there's really nothing left. And so we've put together quite an exhibit on that history. We have a sheep exhibit, we have one on the railroad, and one on schools. And they won't all be done when we cut the ribbon on the 31st of May, but they'll be close.
Right. You mentioned the French Catholics. I've often thought about this. All these up here in the border region. Well, you would think that would be, there would be a lot of history written about it. But you know, it's interesting if you go through the old history books. I mean, when I say old, I mean up through like the 1960s or even beyond. Really, there's really nothing mentioned about that, because they were once, I believe, was probably the majority population up here, but very little is written other than just photos of the churches and that.
Yeah, and we were very fortunate in that we obtained a picture that probably was about 1895 uh, that
Right.
showed the first Catholic church on Cherry Street, which then, when the next one was built up on Prospect Street, turned into St. Agnes Hall and St. Gabriel, which was the boys' school, and Mount St. Joseph, which was the girls' school. And everything showed up on this picture. And so we've made wallpaper out of it. And it's
Oh
just
yeah.
amazing to stand there and figure out where you are. We put streets on it. And with today's technology, um, it's um, it's it's amazing what you can do, and it points out all those things. The only thing it didn't point out was the St. Johnsbury Hospital, because it wasn't the size that it is today. But I think it'll be of interest, and before that's all lost, we've got the history of it.
Right. I was just barely in Albuquerque, New Mexico, visiting one of my sons, and we went to the history museum, and it was, you were talking about the technology in that, like they are on the floor, etched into the floor is a map of the entire city. I can't remember what period of time, and you could go through, follow the streets, and find out like where my son's house would be, and yeah, the technology of museums. Um, a lot of museums, it's amazing that the ones that have been able to go from just I don't want to, I don't know if the word is stagnant, but they become interactive, and yeah, I like to visit history museums. And like one of my homes that I live in Derby, Vermont, and Marquette, Michigan, and for a city of 20,000 people, this community has a state of the art, beautiful museum. But like you, like your group, you don't have to feel alone that you don't have a lot of visitors. This one is open, I think, 6 days, 5 or 6 days a week. And when I go there, and this is, as I said, it's a beautiful place. And when I go there, oftentimes I'm either one of three people there. So you're not alone when it comes to not having a lot of visitors. But the greater concept, though, is at least you're preserving the
Yep,
history.
and your reaction to that museum that you visited is a likeness to the people that visit here, and I'm sure. Well, I know that some of them go away, and we have additional visitors just because of their praise for this place.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think maybe we just have people just have the wrong, maybe an old, outdated thought of what they're going to find? Because there's, all right. First of all, I think you will agree, the Northeast Kingdom have many fine historical society museums in it. They're amazing, but not all of them can afford to be as progressive just because of the lack of revenue. So maybe people are surprised just how nice your place is.
And to the fact that we have buildings. I mean, I remember back in the day when up in Brownington, there was the big stone house and that was it. And now they've really expanded.
Right. Yep. They've actually pulled the campus together. More or less, they've kind of pulled the old campus together, which was in parts of it were in private
Yep.
hands, and they've been blessed with a number of good directors. There was Tracy Martin, Peggy Day Gibson, Molly Vasey, and now I believe her name is Sarah Barry. I hope I got her first name right. She was just on my show, but they all brought individual things to it, which which helped it get to where it is today. And yeah, it's really a thriving. It's not only a history museum, it's living history, and it's a great just overall venue. But everybody talks about Alexander Twilight, who founded the old stone house. So you think maybe in 200 years they're going to be talking about you, just as in Peggy, not no, Peggy Pearl, the founder of this great
Oh,
institution, as in your location.
I know. I will be clueless.
No, but you've done a great job, and I know you always say it wasn't just you, and I know it wasn't, because you know what is it's just like my business is. You know, I'm just the face, and I look at some of the people who write for me or submit work, and I'm thinking, wow, I wished I could write like them. And I'm sure you have those moments with
Yep.
some of your volunteers that you're just really impressed to their knowledge.
Yep.
So Tommy, here's the fun people. Do you ever have people go in there that maybe have never been to St. Johnsbury, but their family was from there, and they find little tidbits of their family that maybe they didn't know anything about, or that they were hoping to find?
We That happens a lot. We had a couple in yesterday, and they were from away, and she remembers way back when she was young, of the handies, and the ice
Right?
cutting. And I mean, she was just a young girl, but she was ecstatic to see the ice cutting equipment and the pictures. And yeah, oftentimes they'll come and find a connection, which is kind of neat. And we oftentimes have people going through, you know, their family's estate, and they'll, come up with items from St. Johnsbury, and we'll be the benefactor of them. Yeah.
I've talked to the folks at the Yellowstone House about this, and they actually agree with me. Is for the future, like we collect, you collect old photos. I'll collect photos, but often scans. But everybody goes around with a camera today. Everybody goes around. They capture. There's some photos that would be really of historic significance in, say, 100 years, but because a lot of them never leave the camera, or at least some personal repository. uh, I wonder how many. I wonder if historical societies. I'm not into technology that much. Only what I need to know, but whether they should have whether they should be collecting some of these photos at permission of the people who take them, and preserve those as well, if only on the cloud, because you know there's not going to be many hard copy photos kicking around out there for future generations
Well,
of
look at
us.
the telephone. It takes your picture. And
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
I
and you know,
yeah.
keeping those is important. We inherited hundreds of negatives from the Caledonian Record, and we're figuring out how to save and actually display them because they're just fascinating.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is those a lot of newspaper photographers, they captured. There's a good cross section of it. Some of them are photos of life in action, as in, yeah, you got the portrait shots, but there's a lot of stuff. Just and it's interesting going through the old newspapers, particularly the Caledonia. I don't, I know some people just reading the paper, reading. Sometimes people get a little wound up, but Caledonia Record has had a long, long history of being a great paper. I love going through their old ones, but it's interesting going through old newspapers. They would actually publish things today. Old newspapers would that that would not be acceptable in today's standards. I don't know if you've seen any of that, but I mean, articles or
Well,
photos and such.
I think it's amazing to go back before the camera and read the articles because sometimes they are so descriptive. You don't need TV to see it. You can picture it, and
Absolutely.
to their it's hard to carry on that newspaper in today's world. But I
Oh, it
just
is.
every night I hold it and I read it, and I'm so happy that it still tells you about um, your community. And to me, it's it's great.
Right, right. Okay, we only have about 3 more minutes left. Where is your museum at, and how can people
Well, we're
visit it?
at 421 Summer Street, and that is Summer Street runs parallel to Main Street. And during the winter's months, which is October through May, we are open Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. When summertime comes, we are hopeful that it's coming. We open 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and then the first and third Saturdays, 1 to 4. It's really hard to get people to staff the Saturdays, so we're trying the 1 to 4 first and third Saturdays, and the admission is by donation.
Right. So, any big plans for the summer? I know sometimes you have various productions
Well, they
going
can
on.
visit our website, and the DAR is sponsoring an exhibit for a couple of weeks, the end of May, 1st of June. It's a panel show, and we are working, Jen Payne is working on a sampler show of that period of time, Revolutionary War, where you can visit various places to see different samplers that girls did. And that's really
Right.
fascinating. But there's a lot more information that's going to be on the website about those things.
What is the website?
Just type in St. Johnsbury History and Heritage, www. We There's another exhibit on Simeon Cobb, who was a resident in St. Johnsbury during the Revolutionary period, and we have artifacts. So we got 2 or 3 things going on, and like I said, we're going to open up the new building the end of May.
Right. Well, it sounds like you got a good summer coming. Do you still do you used to, or you did something on
Oh
ghosts
yeah, we have a ghost
once?
walk, which is, I believe, just give me a minute here. It's in August, and the date is set for the 9th with a rain date of the 10th. And we do that at Mount Pleasant Cemetery and bring a little bit of history to life.
Yeah, cemeteries, they're just like going through old. I could hang out in cemeteries. I know it sounds a little
Oh no,
ghoulish,
I was
but you
brought
know.
up in a cemetery because my
Oh,
dad
that's
took
right.
care of Mount Pleasant Cemetery for years.
Right. That's true. That's true. Okay, well, we've got to wrap it up, but it was great having you on, and you know, hopefully somebody steps up to the plate so you can retire yet
Yeah.
again. Well, thank
Well,
you for
thanks
coming
for
on.
having me.
And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.